You can point to the obvious factors behind New Zealand's economic revival, upswing or so-called rock star economic status. Part of it comes down to a policy framework that worked pretty well. So when the global economy is going pear-shaped, interest rates got cut down to record low levels. Some of it comes down to a little bit of luck, and some of it was bad luck. We had our second largest city was all back sort of destroyed. Ironically, that's presented a little bit of an opportunity, rebuilding our second largest city, but that's providing an awful lot of growth out there. We're seeing the connectivity story in regard to what's going on with Asia. So commodity prices sitting at record sort of high, terms of trade sitting at a 40-year peak. It's a great macroeconomic story when you look at it, albeit fraught with a lot of tensions. Three things I'm looking at across New Zealand Inc. Over the coming 3 to 4 years. It's one, whether we continue to execute well in regard to those opportunities that Asia provides. The macro numbers look really good in regard to free trade agreements either in place or pending with sort of half the global population. Execution needs to prevail over those opportunities, because otherwise the competitors get a little of a sniff and you can put it at the back door. Secondly, the New Zealand economy tends to have this three-speed dynamic, fifth, neutral and reverse. And what tends to happen when you start to see the fruits of that economic upswing, and we start to see a little bit of rock star sort of connotations start to go around, we start to see behaviours of old start to come back. And you start to see populism trump a little bit of economic leadership. We start to see the productivity story start to wane, firms start to take attention off the cost line, and ultimately that undermines the bottom line, and then you've got an economic calamity a couple of years sort of down the track. So with rock star sort of status, we quite like the fact that New Zealanders in general still seem to be pretty focused. We are not seeing any complacency come back into the system. And the final leg is productivity growth. New Zealand at the moment is facing rising economic growth. That normally comes with rising inflation, and that's when the Reserve Bank tends to play party pooper and lifts interest rates. That ultimately softens the growth trajectory. New Zealand going forward, in order to be able to have strong growth with low inflation, it's going to come down to getting that productivity story right. Now, I think there's a big wave of productivity uplift happening across New Zealand Inc. right here and now. It's happening across the business sector. You look at the rural community, services, manufacturing. It's happening in the government arena. It's not coming through the macroeconomic numbers just yet, but it's pending. We get that productivity story right, we should be playing the long game. That is a period of sustained, durable economic growth in a low inflation environment. That's a great outcome.